Really excited to have on board. With us today is Dominika Jamnicky, aka Domi. And Domi, it's okay to call you that? Okay. And to her two coaches, one that was instrumental in a lot of her development, Mr. Craig Taylor and Kyle Boorsma. Say hi, guys, to everybody. Domi was national team member from 2015 until now. She was named Triathlon Magazine 2015 U23 Athlete of the Year, 2018 Commonwealth Games team member, placed 14th at those games, if I'm correct. Numerous podiums, top 20 finishes at WTS events, Camtri races all around the globe. And recently, before this wonderful COVID-19 environment, second place at the Patco Sprint in Claremont down in Florida, and is currently the head coach of the Guelph Development Squad, and has a Bachelor of Science from U of G. Welcome, Domi. Glad to have you aboard. Kyle is currently her coach, and he is the endurance coach at the University of Guelph for track and cross country. Is that right, Kyle? Fantastic. And as well, an avid, very high level runner, cyclist, and triathlete. So not only does he have the background in the professional work, he's got some of the background experience. And many of our viewers or future viewers will know the man in the top right corner, Mr. Craig Taylor. Craig is the head coach of the Guelph Triathlon Project, certified triathlon coach and coach of many of Canada's very best elites and pros and high performance triathletes. Welcome, Craig. Well, we're very glad that our viewers are going to join us, and I'm going to segue over to our intro, and then we'll be right back with Dominika Jamnicky, Kyle Boorsma, and Craig Taylor. Run the intro, Lucas. You're on. All right, welcome, guys. So let's get right to it.
We're good.
No more messing around. I got the thumbs up from the production crew. Thank God for that. Oh, what a calamity. All right. See, can you imagine doing like real live TV with like 2 million viewers?
No.
No. It'd be like Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson all over again, eh?
Would it be like that?
It could be.
Holy
smokes. All right. Well, listen.
Interesting reference.
Yeah. Let's get right back to the development of our superstar guest, Dominika here. And again, thank you, Domi, for joining us. You're fresh off writing an exam a mere 2.5, 3 hours ago. How did it go?
Yeah, it went relatively well. There's been a bit of a shift to the online learning, but the exam went smoothly, and I think it went about as well as it could have.
Oh, great. Good. All right. Looking at your development, how did it all start for you? Did you start with mom and dad and just getting engaged in it? We may or may not know that your mom has a high performance background as a former Olympian, and I just wondered what got you started into the sport and how you got involved.
Yeah, like my parents, they've been a pivotal part of me having the introduction into sports as a child. I grew up playing almost everything possible, and that's thanks to my parents. They've always provided me the opportunity. And my mom, she's a former national level handball player. She represented Australia at the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games. I was 8 years old when I got to watch my mom compete, so that really sparked my interest in sport, and it's an experience that I always cherish and hold close to my heart. And my dad, he's a former competitive downhill skier. And growing up in Australia, we always had access to good weather, pools, and I really found my groove in sports in Australia. But it wasn't until I moved to Canada in 2004 where I was introduced to triathlon. And my first summer here, I saw a local ad for a triathlon in Coburg, a Kids of Steel race, and it was the first time since moving to Canada that I really felt like I belonged in a community. And doing that race, I really found something special. And that was
We-
history.
We just lost you for a little bit of the trailing of the last part of that sentence, Domi. You said you had just felt like it was your first time you're part of a community. If you could pick it up from there.
Yeah, it was the first time I felt like I belonged and I was part of a community, and the supportive nature of the sport really marked my beginning, and from there the rest is really history.
Oh, great. So very typical of a lot of young kids across many nations when they get started into something. Was there a point in time as you were involved in multiple sports that you started to either be a little bit more self-aware of your skill and abilities, or that your parents started to recognize it, leading you towards recognizing pursuing this at a high performance level? Was there a point in time that you remember that?
I think naturally I progressed through the sport. It was my family and new race and friends that I had made at each run. But it wasn't until high school I started attending summer camps through Triathlon Ontario. I started going to training days in Guelph. Having the exposure to different athletes within the province at different levels really inspired me, and from there, when I was picking universities, that's when I started to take it a little more.
So, getting to that point, going into like many grade 12s, or I'm trying to think. Yeah, you would have been a grade 12. Did you do a gap year before you decided on your pursuit of post secondary, or did you make the swing right into to university?
I made the swing right in. I felt like I was ready. I was ready to explore new options, new style of living. So I jumped right into it.
Okay. And given that Craig's been around for quite a while in the triathlon high performance community, was the opportunity to work with Craig part of your decision making with going to University of Guelph?
Yes, working with Craig was probably the number one factor in choosing the University of Guelph. Under him at various training camps. So to me, the decision was a no-brainer. It was the right decision and the best way to go.
Okay, great. Craig, what was your philosophy as you started to, you had an opportunity to work with her at some of these various weekend camps or one-day camps. You obviously had a degree of communication beforehand, started to develop a little bit of a coach-athlete relationship. What was your philosophy in beginning this work with Domi, again, leading towards knowing that she was going to be able to compete at a very high performance and elite international level?
I don't know if we knew that. No offense. And I'd be interested in hearing if Dom remembers that she actually wasn't sure that I wanted her in our squad, or if I had any interest in coaching her. So maybe she can comment on that. And that certainly wasn't my feeling. My intention was not to sort of overuse the privilege I had having a full-time job and some funding to run a full-time squad and go and recruit every kid in the province. So I was more interested in athletes having options. I probably gave her a list of 6 universities that had coaching programs attached to them in some capacity or another. maybe gave some mixed messages about whether I was really interested in coaching or not, which I definitely was. But for me personally, I never really went the recruitment route. Um, and I just saw it as a place where an opportunity to work with good athletes, and in a context where they could get their university education. I know that that's really important in Domi's family, most families. And I don't know, she may have cut out or she may have not mentioned it, but she'd already been, she'd been at the podium level at junior national series. So she was clearly good. And she made our Canada Games team. And I can speak more to that, but she really impressed me in our Canada Games team. I was lucky to be the coach for that one in 2009, maybe. Yeah, I think so. And so she was already on the pathway of performing and quite dedicated and had a plan for university as well. So we were well suited for that.
That's great. Um, what was the main focus that you wanted to bring forward to her as you started this sort of full-time coaching environment with her at the university? What was your philosophy that you really wanted to instill in terms of identifying where her skill sets were at, what needed to be evaluated, where the gap analysis was, and what you started to work on? What did you really tackle during that period of time? And I'd like to hear from both of you on that. What she thought she needed to do to move forward, and what you thought she needed to do to move forward.
That's always the question. I think having
so Domi, what did you start first year university, you're 18 years old, you've had success at the domestic level, you're going to this great training environment with a well-respected, knowledgeable coach. What did you feel you really wanted to achieve, and what did you self-identify that you wanted to work on?
I came into the training environment as one of the younger athletes, as part of the group. And so for me, when I arrived, it was always, oh, I want to win, I always want to perform. I wanted to push and a lot of inspiration from the people that I trained with there at the time. But Craig definitely taught me a different sort of skill set that was required for triathlon, especially progressing to a senior level. And that was more to extend out my hunger for speed and going fast and sort of making it maintainable. And we worked long and hard on it. But I definitely think my time with Craig has made me the athlete I am today.
And Craig, what's your comment to that? Do you have more specific elements that you really remember you wanted to focus on?
Yeah, a bunch. I guess I should start by saying I hopefully know more now than I did then. So it's not like the coach they reach an endpoint and they just know what they want. They just have some philosophies and principles, and they try to learn with the athlete. So I learned a ton with Dom. And we had a really rewarding coach-athlete relationship over a really long time. So it was a great experience. One thing that fundamentally hasn't changed is, and it's an easy sort of no-brainer, is I would like athletes leaving the program to be closer to their endpoint or what they see themselves doing than when they start, and to take those skill sets and attitudes and behaviors and make them portable and bring them to wherever they go. Domi's done that a ton. We did prioritize school number one, so it's never an issue. I don't think it was an issue. It'd be interesting, what sort of subtle messages I send in the background, but verbally and I think in behavior, I would say, look, if you need to miss a session for a class or exam, we'll reschedule around it. It's not a problem. We were guests of the University of Guelph, so I don't work for the University of Guelph, but I had a really strong affinity for the university and academic environment. And it was just learning the bits and pieces of how to put training together in a consistent way. Domi reminded me of something that I'd forgotten, because it's not an issue with her now, but there was a lot of pacing work, honestly, like start slower, build faster. She could go out like a rocket and then wouldn't hold it, whether it's a workout or a race. And it wasn't a linear progression. So she objectively performed better in her third year of junior as an 18-year-old than when I coached her in her first year that I worked with her, when she was a 19-year-old. You got more podiums and more higher up in ranking in the junior series. And we had some pretty candid talks about, the transition to U23 and sort of the loads we were under. And she was probably under more. She could definitely handle the load on a weekly basis, but it was more load than she'd done. So we had to be careful there. And there's the whole book full of skill sets she's got around travel, race prep, race morning organization, skills and tactics, mechanics, and she's gone on and developed those even further with Kyle. And there's just a whole toolkit she developed over time, and it was just about being patient. And we probably had a lot of conversations about stepping on every rung of the ladder as you develop. So when Dom came in, like most juniors, she didn't know how ITU ranking worked, for example. No, no junior really reasonably does. She could run a course on it now. She knows the implications of races. She knows where athletes will be ranked on the start list before the start list is created. Once she knows they're entered, she knows how many points you earn from a race and what you have to do. And so just a bunch of secondary and tertiary skill sets around professionalization of the sport that aren't about swim, bike, and run. But yeah, definitely some basics in pacing were a big one too.
And what I really liked is seeing Kyle smile when you said that she was going out like a rocket and really need to assess some pacing. So it's a great segue, Kyle, that we won't delve into too much on the personal side, but we do know you guys have a unique relationship in that you're a significant other for quite some time now. And as well, now you're a coach. So to be a fly on the wall at the kitchen table would be interesting some days.
Yeah,
Um,
live dangerously, John.
yes, but Kyle, give us. Well, me actually, I'll say, Domi. At what point in time did you feel you wanted to make this adjustment in your athlete growth, and you moved towards Kyle's coaching and philosophy? When did that start? And then I'd like to get Kyle's perspective on what he assessed with your athletic skill status and where he wanted to go.
Yeah, when I decided to take the jump to start chiropractic school, I knew I wasn't going to be living in Guelph anymore. And so I really thought long and hard about what I needed to move forward, especially with adding the academic side of things. And I think that's when I really started to make the switch. And for a while, I actually didn't know who was going to coach me, but I had Kyle helping me along, and then that's when two and two came together, and we really worked well together, and we started.
Fantastic.
Hmm.
So, Kyle, you're now, moved your relationship to an added level and a whole nother toolkit. Your toolkit, certainly as a high level athlete, cyclist, triathlete, runner, but also now working at the University of Guelph for the with the endurance squad, cross country squad. I saw you smile when Craig described she's got, for lack of a better description, a lot of that front end speed and power. So, what did you decide to do over the last little bit that actually, at a very introductory level, shows some promise with a podium at the Patco race?
Well, I don't think I can take too much credit for that podium, but the reason I smiled is because that was something that was really obvious in the way that, well, it wasn't obvious that that had happened because I didn't know Domi back then. But coming out of a significant phase of development under Craig, it was obvious to me that she was very, very, very consistent. So when Craig talked about things like the race day planning and execution, um, Domi is the type of athlete that uh, almost always, barring some unforeseen circumstance, is going to deliver on what's possible on that day. She's also the type of athlete that very, very, very rarely misses a training session. And so you don't get to that type of consistent delivery without being able to understand the pacing and understand your body and really buying into the way a coach has asked you to deliver on the workout. And so it was interesting to begin working with Domi for me on a coaching level, because here I get an athlete that is really far, like not fully formed, but considerably far along in their development curve. And that made it interesting for me because I got to kind of shake things up, because she's developed so far and can handle so much training and is so consistent with it. Then I get to say, okay, well, what do you think about trying this, or why don't we do this differently? And a lot of the kind of things that we haven't changed a lot, but a lot of the things that I kind of pulse in there are ways to shake it up. So I'll ask Domi to intentionally go way harder in an interval than she normally would, and then we're just going to see what happens. So that's kind of why I was smiling a bit.
Okay, well, a little bit of a torture master then.
Could say that.
Yeah. And with that philosophy of injecting almost spikes of new things for her, Domi, how do you feel about it, given this 1 year of training in philosophy? What's working well for you?
Yeah, I think as Kyle mentioned, there's just been a few little additions of things that I've never experienced before in training, and I think um, it has created a bit of a shock to the system, but it's been very positive and very exciting. Um, and I'm really enjoying it. Just sort of diving a little bit deeper and sort of pushing my limits a little more than what I have in the past. So it's exciting.
Well, I think what's interesting is what Kyle had mentioned, combined with Craig, is that you've reached a stage of maturity where part of the self reflection is fully matured in yourself, and that's when a coach can ask that, and it doesn't become a pushback. It becomes okay. I'll try it. And that's always exciting for any coach to be able to work with an athlete when they're that mature and that steady in their ability to move forward. So that's wonderful to hear. That's great news for both of you. It makes for a great environment, very rewarding. Well, we certainly wouldn't. We'd be remiss if we were to sort of completely avoid the next segue, which would be obviously our world really has changed in the last 6 weeks. Um, we're dealing with the COVID-19 environment, and certainly everyone around the globe, and certainly in North America, is having to make adaptations to the way we manage ourselves, especially not only our day to day living, but how it impacts us with our sport. Um, so I'm very, very curious, Domi, to know a little bit about what you feel you want to do given the impact and the change to the Olympics. Were the Olympics on your radar for 2020? And if they were, what does that mean for 2021 now?
Yeah, I mean, the Olympics have definitely been on my radar. It's something I've always wanted to pursue. And so basically, 2020, it was going to be a tight squeeze for me. I had about 4 months left to really sort of get in that top 140 Olympic points ranking in order to have eligibility to compete for Canada in the relays. And so I was on a very tight timeline, but it was quite manageable, and I was ready to do the work in order to get there. But now with the delay, I have a little more time to develop some of the skills that I'm still sort of quite lacking the last final touch on.
So what
And
are
give
those?
me
What are those? And you don't have to give away any trade secrets, but it'd be curious, I think, for some viewers to know how you, as a very mature adult, partially self-coached, self-advised, what are the things that you feel you want to make improvements in your athletic skill set?
the one thing that I've in on just
And wouldn't you know it, everybody, she goes into robot mode as soon as she's
Yeah,
going to tell us.
we may want to hear
Domi,
that
if you
again.
can hear us, we're going to ask you to sort
Sorry.
of repeat that again. You went a little robot
Okay.
on us again, so maybe if you could just repeat that juicy bit.
A project that I started working on with Craig in the last few years was my running ability, and I felt like
Kyle, it might be you and I.
Yeah,
Or...
sorry, Domi, I'm gonna switch to Kyle,
okay.
and
Can I say
hopefully,
can I say something first because Kyle won't say it?
okay, sure.
And that you asked about Claremont and that the program's working, and he sort of shrugged it off. And it is, and she's running faster than she's ever run. And that's an objective fact. We have it from particularly 1500s and 3000s, and then I would say more subjectively from this Claremont race. But the way she podiumed in Claremont is not the way that she usually makes a podium historically, and that means that she's been near the front or whittled the group down on the bike and then run well, but not one of the best runs. And what she looked to be able to do in Claremont, I wasn't there, I'm just guessing from splits from the athletes she was racing with, was start with a large number of racers. And I don't know if she went to the front and then got passed or if she worked her way up, but ran probably at a better level throughout the 5K against arguably better competition in a different way. So it'd be interesting to hear how they see her run progression going, but I don't, it's not really debatable that she isn't running better right now over the last year, 18 months to say. So there you go, Kyle, laid the table for you, but that would be my objective opinion watching what they've been able to do.
That's great. Let's hear from Kyle on that.
Yeah, and maybe a bias in the program to the run. But yeah, I mean, I think my assessment of Domi would be that she would be an all-rounder. I didn't see her as having a specialization or a particular weakness in any one discipline, including things like her transitions. That might be one of her strongest elements, actually. But to me, to make the jump, and we focused a lot right away, which was kind of interesting to just jump right in at this level, but we focused a lot right away at the World Cup level. And we quickly identified that, okay, there's probably a small improvement you need to do in your swim, but it's pretty close. Happy with where the bike was at. I didn't see that as a big concern. But to really distinguish yourself, it was going to come down to the run. And I don't think this is groundbreaking by any means what I'm describing, but that's where we put a lot of our emphasis on, was to do the kind of work necessary that would make a difference at that point in the race, because that's where we identified strategically we thought we could get the biggest return. And it's worked so far, I think, because Domi has taken the time to build up to a point where now she can put in the appropriate level and type of work that will bring about those kinds of returns in performance. So it wasn't the kind of situation where you see a lot of athletes saying, well, okay, here's what I need to do. So I'm going to skip a bunch of steps and just get right to that. And that can cause a lot of problems. It was a very stepwise process that got her to where I started doing some work with her. And then we could just say, okay, you're actually ready to do this, so let's do it now.
Yeah.
Very good. And I'd like to just say that certainly in February I got to see Domi. I think it was February race, the 800 free, the swim portion in Markham. I would like to see, as an amateur viewer, I would like to see a little bit more distance per stroke, Domi. That's one thing. They're just a smidgen more. But thank you guys, because that is wonderful insight. How does it feel, Domi, to hear that from your, your former coach and your current coach, where we have this wonderful environment. We get to talk about you as you get to listen. How does that feel?
Yeah, it's really rewarding, and these are both people that I trust um, uh, a lot, and um, to be able to go through this process with both of them, it's been a really special journey, and I look forward to continuing on it.
That's great. So we have this COVID-19 environment. You've told us all that you've got a little more time leading into 2021. And of course, assuming that all of the national governing bodies get their act together around readjusting competition formats, selection procedures, selection criteria, certainly there's going to be a lot to come out and a lot to learn from that. What's your vision? Um, very briefly going through this COVID 19 environment, and I'm only saying that because I believe we're going to exit this environment at some point. I realize it's unknown. But between you and Kyle, what's your vision moving forward as you exit the COVID 19 environment and we get at some point back to a position of normalcy? What's your direction going to be?
The goal is I'm a robot again.
A little bit of a
Yeah, just a
robot.
little bit.
The goal is the goal is to be for the demands of competition whenever that may be, and so we're just trying to find unique ways to sort of still get in a race environment even though we don't have it, and to work on things that I'll need when we return to competition.
And Kyle, what adaptations do you feel you're having to make short term, i.e., the next 6 weeks and then into the next 3 months?
Uh, I would say, thinking about it from like a big picture, you're going to see a number of athletes who the circumstances that have changed very quickly and unexpectedly are going to they're going to do what they need, and they're going to become benefited from this extra time. And you're going to see athletes that are going to struggle. So in a big picture sense, I'm trying to tip the scales for Domi towards her being one of those athletes that makes the best use of this time that she can, so that when competition resumes, it is going to resume at some point. She's further along where she wants to be in pursuit of her goals, and is better prepared to go after them. So there's some obvious challenges that we're facing, but then that presents an opportunity to do things differently, and we can see what happens. I mean, obviously, unless you have an endless pool or are, I don't know, in a dry suit tethered to the side of the river or something, nobody's swimming. So, we could be disappointed that that's going to happen and think that that's a setback in her swim progression, or we can look at what other areas are we going to develop. And I'm talking a lot to my track and field athletes about the same kinds of things. So, when you have the urgency to prepare for a competition, you're always doing the specific types of training and mental preparation that are getting ready for you to do that in usually a couple of weeks to months time frame. But without that urgency, you have the opportunity to do things where you don't need to put the same emphasis on those specific things and can develop in other areas. So if you're the type of athlete who, training even 6 days a week is a challenge, then don't worry about the specific paces that you're running in your workouts to get ready for a race that's not happening in the next couple of weeks. Why don't you spend the time developing and becoming an athlete that tolerates more training? Because that's obviously a gap. So we look at those kinds of things with Domi, and then we just kind of try and get creative. And I don't have like the perfect recipe to figure all that out, but Domi and I will talk about it and say, what do you think about this idea? Or she'll bring something forward, and then we say, okay, let's talk about what those outcomes might look like and see if we can get them, and then we kind of revise as we go.
Oh, that's excellent. Um, Putting the cart a little before the horse, we're going to move and again exit the COVID-19, being not only hopeful but planning for 2021. Let's look long term, Domi, putting a little bit on the spot. We have seen a lot of athletes in the triathlon world go from being an Olympic distance or ITU based athlete and make the transition into becoming a long distance athlete, whether that be 70.3 or the full Ironman championship distance. What are your thoughts on that, transitioning from an Olympic distance sprint ITU athlete to a longer distance athlete? Is something that interests you? Is that on your radar?
Yeah, most definitely. I think post 2021, depending how things are looking, I would like to take a crack at another Olympic cycle. I mean, the Olympic world champions are in their 30s and beyond. So another cycle will put me in my early 30s. So I definitely want to try again. And then yeah, I would love to experiment with some long distance non-draft racing. I've been told I can punch quite a small hole on the bike, so maybe that might be advantageous for racing. But yeah, I think triathlon is going to be embedded in my life for as long as I live, and I'll be a part of the sport in some way, shape, or form. So I look forward to making that transitioning and seeing how I can do in a different style of racing in the future.
Oh, that's great to hear. I think Kyle's kind of wondering, oh man, 4 more years of early mornings and all of that, but that's great to hear for all of the fans of triathlon, and certainly for a lot of athletes that look up to you at wanting to go for more down the road, which is a great segue into last little bit here is reviewing of the Guelph Development Squad initiative. What prompted that, Domi, for you to move from being coached to being a coach?
Yeah, I've always wanted to share my passion with the sport. And in roughly 2016, 2017, I started an initiative with a teammate of a youth squad, which eventually grew to be the Guelph Development Squad. And the ability to give back and share the skills that I've learned is so rewarding. And it's really nice to work with the kids. It it inspires me, and it challenges me, and I've learned a lot about myself as an athlete by being a mentor and a coach. And I think that's really a rewarding experience. So we're a humble little group in Guelph, and we get together 3 times a week in the summer, and it's a fun time. The goal of the group is to learn the basic skills of triathlon, the same skills that I learned at the Tri Ontario camps as a 13-year-old. And my goal is to teach these kids skills that will not only apply to their triathlon racing or triathlon careers, but skills that they'll use in their everyday life.
Fantastic. With that initiative, are you coaching the full menu, all three disciplines, or are you a bit more selective in what you're coaching? I'm just curious as to what you're delivering for your team.
It's a bit of a season program. So in the winter times, we focus more on the biking component. In the fall, most of my athletes are running cross country at school, so we focus on that. And then as soon as we hit spring, summer, then we're offering all three disciplines and using the Guelph Lake or nice rural roads of Guelph to get in our training.
Oh, great. Um, what do you feel? What do you feel the difference is coaching young youth athletes compared to what you were doing at your mature stages through university and even now. How are you making adjustments with these athletes, both technically and with your approach?
Um, I believe for me, it's about keeping the fun in the sport. I think a lot of the times athletes can get a little too wrapped up in it, and I think for me, just providing an environment where kids feel safe, where they can be themselves, that to me is the number one priority. So my goal is to challenge these kids, but also to keep it fun and to learn skills that one day they'll move on to another group, and then they'll use that skill set to continue on in their development.
Fantastic. A quick question for both Kyle and Craig. Have you noticed any changes in Domi now that she's become a coach herself in the way she approaches what she does in her own programming? I'm seeing some smiles. Craig, what do you think?
Oh, I was hoping to go second. Honestly, not much. It's just an amplification of who she is. So I can think of two or three examples. One, I would say it's really important, and uh, we need more women coaching. And it's doubly important to have people who are of Domi's caliber and ability coaching, because it provides role models for the kids, boys or girls, doesn't matter. I was sort of laughing because she has had athletes who just um, they're typical youth athletes, and some of them are more motivated than others, and you can't want it for somebody. So I remember having that conversation about, because she's so motivated and so accountable and so driven and so reliable in that regard. So it's learning to identify what you're willing to tolerate in the environment you want to create and what your principles are, and then trying to draw the best out of each other. And then I was just thinking of a runtime trial we did, must have been February, early February, and there's a 1500 meter on an indoor track, and yeah, I think I must have messaged you after, but it was just so rewarding to see Dom warming up on the track with the kids that she works with, and then jumping in the first run to help with pacing and courage, and she went at a really fast pace, and then 5 minutes later lining up and going an even faster time on her own to get her own time. So she's just got this really great way about her that I would personally find exhausting, that she can get her own work done. But she's got all the time in the world and empathy and understanding for the athletes she's working with, and she gets the best out of them, and but also holds them accountable and tries to help them mature and grow up too.
And over to you, Kyle. Is Domi a smarter athlete because she's been coaching? Your thoughts?
Smarter athlete? I don't know if I would say it that way. I think similar to what Craig said, I don't know if coaching really brought anything out in Domi, but I think because I think she was already that kind of person, but I think it solidified a lot of those qualities, because she knows what she wants. She knows why she's doing it. She's more secure in the person that she is and her values and all of that kind of stuff. And the coaching is just, and her group is just a reflection and a result of who she is. So when you talk about her going and doing all those kinds of extras, that's just who she is, and coaching allows her to let that come out.
I don't know if you think this way, Dom, or I'd be interested what you think, but do you think that based on your athlete experience, you're able to get an athlete from A to B, or identify like the root thing you want to work at and keep it simple easier? Or are you still figuring kids out?
Yeah, I think it's a mixed balance. There there are pathways that where I've been able to take athlete A, develop a skill in them, and it's been a very straightforward pathway. But then there are sometimes, everyone is different, and so to figure out going from point A to point B with someone else might be different. And so I think that for me has been a skill that I've developed, is knowing how to work with someone to bring out the best in them and the skills that they need.
Yeah, it's not always the same pathway for every
No,
athlete, and you have to
no.
know your learner because athletes learn differently. And so as a former coach, sport enthusiast, it's even nice for me to hear you say that. It's a sign of a mature coach who's learning a lot. So good for you. I think that's fantastic. Given that, Domi, and we're going to put a quick call out to any of our viewers that have stuck with us through our technical challenges for questions, and we will get to those. I want to ask you a question, Domi. Have you given some thought, based on now your experience as athlete, your goals, and your experience as a coach? What do you think the Ontario and Canadian triathlon infrastructure and system needs to improve on getting more athletes within the development pathway and onto a high performance stream? What do you think that the system needs?
Yeah, I think it's a very multifaceted question, and it has a lot of components to it. But for me, drawing on my own experiences growing up in Canada with triathlon, for me the biggest thing was having the ability to train with it I looked up to, or that were really fast, or someone that I wanted to race with. And I think having that sort of mentorship, it really generates a good foundation for development within the country. And I think any initiative where athletes more mature or more senior athletes have the ability to sort of give back in ways to help grow the system, I think is really positive experience.
Yeah, and on that note, I know that you've partnered with a colleague, a coaching colleague of yours, to start that initiative and show some leadership in the triathlon community for young kids. What are you working on? What have you got going during this odd time?
Yeah, so David Hopton and I have partnered together with Ontario coaches to start a triathlon e-training series to capture a development age group within Ontario and hopefully beyond Ontario, to have live workouts once a week, where a club or a coach is hosting the workout and everyone can jump in. And my hopes is that we do have some more senior level athletes jump on, to sort of inspire the younger ones to get in there and band together during these tough times. I think that's really going to help bond our triathlon community while we get through these unprecedented times.
I think that's a wonderful initiative. I think it's great, again, that you're showing that leadership, Domi. I think that'll be exciting for a lot of people, and looking forward to seeing how that grows. I'm going to turn to my production staff and just see what kind of picture or what kind of questions we have. Just yell them out loud. Everyone can hear you.
Okay, first one is from Barry Shepley. After big Commonwealth Games success, you disappeared from racing and high performance training. Why and what did you benefit or lose from that lost time?
A tough one.
Good to hear.
2018 was a pretty tough year for me after the Commonwealth Games. I think I had been chasing these goals for so long, maybe for the wrong reasons. I had a bit of a setback, and then I had a few health problems that I was dealing with during that year, and so that period of 2018 for me was actually the period of time I learned the most about myself, and what I wanted out of the sport and what I wanted to achieve. And it really brought me back to my roots. So I focused on doing it for the love of it, and finding my way back in.
So a little bit of a reset and a recalibration for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think certainly in other sports we see that quite often, and I commend you for taking the time to do that, Domi, because a lot of times athletes will try to force and push through it because they have this niggling need to either stay connected or stay in shape, or something drawing them that they are worried that they're going to lose something. But as you said, very often when an athlete takes the very, very mature decision to reset like that, they come out of that opportunity with knowing more about themselves, and they become a stronger athlete for it. So good for you. And another question, young Robin Videka, what do we have up here?
Okay, the next one is from Tornado Triathlon. So their question is, how do you do it all? Train youth, go to school full time, and train as an elite professional yourself, and still smile.
I think both Kyle and Craig have told me this. I seem to have a high capacity to fit in a lot of things and balance everything. And to me, I wouldn't have it any other way. I love the stimulus of everything combined. And, to me, that's what I need to succeed. And that's what I thrive in, that kind of environment. And I enjoy every minute of it. I like filling my day and getting after it. So we just keep trucking along.
Is your brother the same way as you?
In ways, yes, he's very similar to me. I think he's still learning how to handle a full academic load and a training load. But then again, he is also studying mechanical engineering, so that's a whole nother ball game.
Oh, don't tell Lucas that. He's going to phone Jacob up like tomorrow to find out more.
I think he should. I mean, Jacob be a great role model for that. He's, excelling academically, and he's got a good head on his shoulders about training at different loads at different times in the year.
Oh, well, he might take you up on that offline sometime. Yeah. Well, the next question, Robin.
This is another one from Tornado Triathlon. I think it's for Dominika again. Was the success at the Clermont Race 2020 just a, hey, I'm back and ready to be a force again?
I like that one.
Yeah. To be honest, Clermont was the first time ever in a while where I just really put a stamp on it. And I was very aggressive with that race, and I went after it, and it paid off. And it was a very different style of racing than what I've previously been used to. And I'm pretty looking forward to getting back out there whenever.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm going to put one more call out. Any last questions, Robin, or are we going to segue to the surprise next?
For now, we'll go there. We'll let you know if there's any more.
All right. Well, if anybody has any further questions, they can pop them up. But now there's going to be a little quick surprise. This is the one area I didn't prep any of you for. All right? So I look for all of you to contribute. We're going to see who knows Domi well. Does she know herself well, or does Kyle know her well, or does Craig know her the best? Okay. Are you ready for this, Domi? All right.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Here's our little lightning round. Domi, your favorite sports hero?
My mom.
Okay. Hey, Kyle, Craig, you bring your A game on this. You can chime in too.
Oh, can we chime in?
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Just free for all.
Yeah,
I would have had that before Dom.
We gotta see. We gotta see who knows her. All right. Number 2. Favorite song or music before competing?
You probably have "It's a Good Time" on your ITU thing still.
Something cheery, something poppy, something to get me going. Yeah.
Okay.
Something cheery.
Something cheery. All right.
Yeah.
If not triathlon, what sport would you do?
Oh. I don't even know.
Sport would Domi do?
Might not be volleyball.
Yeah, you used to say beach
Yes.
volleyball.
Beach volleyball.
There we go.
Okay. Should be a setter though, eh?
Yeah, it should be a.
Yeah.
Should be in
Libero,
the back.
maybe.
Yeah, libero. Yeah.
Favorite food the night before competition?
Pizza.
I don't know.
Food?
You're making dinners, Kyle. Or are you with them?
Pizza.
They come in a
Domi?
box delivered, so.
Yeah.
All right.
Pizza.
Pizza?
She said pizza. All right, number 5. So where's your favorite place to compete in your vast career so far?
That you've done or that you want to race?
That she has done. Favorite place to race so far?
Man. That's a tough one. I'll say Gold Coast. I don't know if that's...
Oh, we lost you, Domi. Was that Gold Coast? Back to your roots or something? Oh, we lost her.
Australia's been good.
What's that?
Oh, Australia.
Yeah.
All right.
I would have said Mooloolaba, and not only because you've raced there, but because you saw Kirsten Sweetland win there when you were a kid, and then got to race her for real about 4 or 5 years later.
That's true.
All right, here's a good one. Make a choice. Chocolate or ice cream?
No choice.
Chocolate.
Has to be both.
Okay.
Chocolate ice cream?
Your favorite brand of swimsuit, Domi?
Jolyn.
Yeah.
Oh my God. She
Yeah.
said all the girls are saying Jolyn.
Everybody's wearing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Bike. Mechanical or Di2?
E-Tap.
E-Tap. SRAM.
Yeah.
Okay. The one piece of running equipment you cannot do without?
Garmin watch.
Okay.
You should spread that.
And how about your favorite discipline out of the three?
Oh, depends on the week.
I don't even know.
I'd say running.
Yeah, I'm digging the running.
Running, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
You have another question.
Oh, we've got one more question here before we wrap up, guys. Go ahead, Robin.
The next question is from Sasha Bolton.
Never heard of her.
One of the most self-motivated athletes I know and a great role model for young athletes. Do you have any athletes you look up to or have any people around you that you look to for motivation?
Oh, that's a good one. That's kind of like your favorite sports hero, but yeah. How about that, Domi?
Yeah, I mean, my kids, they motivate me every day. I could be in a terrible mood and then I show up to coach and my day's turned upside down. Like, it's awesome. Like, I really thrive on the group and they really motivate me. So they're awesome.
That's great. That's wonderful to hear. Well, I can't thank you enough, guys, for doing this interview, showing... Another one. Boy, oh boy. Okay.
It's rolling in.
Two more questions. We'll go with two more questions. Our viewers have been so patient through our technical difficulties at the beginning of the interview, and so have you guys. I really appreciate it.
This one could be for anyone.
All right. So we'll put this question to all three. So let's throw it out there, Robin, and you go ahead.
What was your favorite race experience?
Oh,
right.
I got one if you need a minute.
Go ahead, Craig.
I'm gonna go back to Canada Games in 2009 because I didn't coach Domi at the time, and she showed up in I think a two-piece suit, and she had platform pedals. You may have had cages on them, or were they mountain bike pedals?
I think they're mountain bike
It might have
pedals.
been mountain bike pedals. So it wasn't about the gear; it was about the attitude. And she came in. She had a great week, and the race timing company made a mistake. She had probably the swim of her life at that point. You're only a teenager, so it's not a long career, but she made the front group and she's running after them on the boardwalk and her chip has fallen off. And so the timing company stopped her to put her chip back on in a draft legal race. So she misses pack. So she puts her head down and she just smashes it for 20K as best she can and then runs on dead legs. And she had a good race. And I have this picture of myself and the team manager and the three women who raced for us. So it was Jarrell Hinton, Joanna Brown, and Domi. And the other two girls are smiling, and I'm really pumped with Domi's effort and her execution on a great day. And she is just scowling. It's one of my favorite pictures.
Mad at the world, eh? Mad at the world.
Yeah, and she was right, and we protested it, but there's nothing you can do, and it was a mistake on the part of the race the race organization, and sort of robbed her of this experience. But she was just fierce, and it didn't sour on the sport or anything. Obviously, she just doubled down and raced great in the relay. But I just remember that intensity, and I thought, wow, this kid is something special.
Oh, that's nice. How about you, Domi?
I think a race that I really hold close to my heart was my first Continental Cup win. It was the year before Toronto Pan Am Games, so it was in 2014, and I won it. And I was riding on such a high throughout the whole race. This whole race unfolded, and it was one of my first true good performances at a sort of senior level. And standing on the podium, like, I think my cheeks were so sore, smiling from ear to ear. It was a great experience.
And you won it going alone on the bike, and then ran 10K and held everybody off.
Yeah, that's true.
Thus the love for maybe the running, maybe a little bias towards the running. All right, any last?
Oh, we didn't hear
Oh,
Kyle's
Kyle,
yet.
yeah, Kyle,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, one race moment in particular that sticks out to me. Um, After I finished running, I got into cycling, and I remember following some of the World Tour stuff and all this. And Tour of Alberta was going on, and the weather was like it's September, right, in Alberta, so you can kind of get anything. And they got like 6 degrees, snow flurries, tons of rain, really terrible weather. And I remember knowing some of the guys who were in the race, talking to them, and they were all complaining about how tough the weather conditions are. And the same weekend as the Tour of Alberta cycling race, you have the WTS in Edmonton.
Mhm.
So they're experiencing the same conditions, but those cyclists don't have to swim and get in the water before they get on their bike.
Or race in a
And
bathing suit.
they don't race in a bathing suit. They can put on all the gloves and the heated stuff. They can go back to the car, all of that. And, you know, Domi goes in and it doesn't let her phase her, typical Domi style, doesn't let any of this negativity get to her. Swims well, gets out, rides really well, and out of transition takes the lead in the WTS in Edmonton. I think was it her first WTS?
Yeah.
It might have been,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
It was my
in the lead
debut.
for a brief portion on the run, and I just thought that was a fantastic moment. I really knew, like, okay, she's very, very tough, way tougher than me, like, amazing.
Oh, that's great to hear, guys.
Whatever.
And
That's a
one
good
more.
one to finish it
And
off.
my production crew says this is a good one for us to wrap things up on. All right, Robin,
So
what is it?
from Taylor Embry for Dominika, what's your favorite triathlon memory?
Favorite triathlon memory. I think it was my first triathlon in Coburg as a Kids of Steel. I had no idea what I was doing. My training was to ride a loop around my block on my mountain bike and then do a loop running. But I remembered as soon as I lined up for that start, it was surreal. It was unlike anything I'd experienced before. The adrenaline, the excitement, towing the line, and I loved every minute of it. So that's where it all stems from, and that's one that I won't forget.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, once again, guys, I can't thank you enough for being willing to do this interview. Thank you for your patience through some of our technical difficulties, which we'll try to iron out. It is wonderful for you, Domi, to get a chance to express yourself, and for our viewers, those that already know you know this, but for other people that have watched this live, but will also watch the recording of this, see your confidence, see your skills as not only a strong, confident young woman, but also as a strong, confident athlete. And I think Canada is very lucky to have a nice, strong athlete like yourself. And boy, it really sounds good that you're willing to stick it out well beyond 2021 and beyond. So that's great, great news, exciting news. And you'll be sure to see one of the production crew here signing up for your e-training races. And you might even have to watch out for one of the other production crew members. I put her on the bike. She's 14, and her nominal power, these power things and everything. But you know what? She was able to push 172 watts. So for 20 minutes.
Very good.
And she's 14. So I thought, wow, not bad. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Sign her up.
Yeah. But she's just telling me she likes swimming better. So what can you do?
That's not bad either. That'll be fine.
Yeah.
Again, guys, thank you to all our viewers watching Fit Live. We really appreciate your patience through all the technical difficulties. I'm going to ask the team here to stay online before we go offline, and we can just debrief on the interview. Thanks again, everybody. Thank you to our viewers. Once we got past our difficulties, if you like what you saw from Domi and all of the coaches here, please like, subscribe, and stay tuned for next week, where we're going to have Barry Shepley and Tristan Jones on, and we're going to talk to them about their development as well. And check out our social media links as well. We're on all the major platforms: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks very much, guys. Stay on the line, and goodbye to our viewers. Take care, guys.
Thank you.